Okay, the microphone works. Okay, perfect. Okay, welcome to my talk. Thank you very much for having me. Thanks for being here. I'm going to talk now about the fun stuff, social media influencers, and how they might contribute to over diagnosis. So we can see that, especially in young people, the way they use media has changed dramatically over the past decades, and also how they trust different sources of media. And we can see that, of course, young people nowadays, they trust in social media sites almost as much as they trust into traditional media. But what is the information on social media sites? It's very diverse, right? Social media sites don't provide information themselves, but there's a variety of sources out there which provide a lot of unmoderated content from different sources like companies, government agencies, NGOs, journalists, influencers, and so on. And it's become very difficult for people to navigate these environments and to make sense out of these environments. And it is a innate human characteristic that people are always looking for threats in their information environments, just like meerkats. And once we have identified a threat, once we have identified maybe also a medical condition which we are challenged with, we try to cope with that situation. We try to cope with the anxiety which we are feeling. And the best way to cope with anxiety is, of course, just fixing the problem. Sometimes we can fix the problem, for example, by changing our lifestyle or by finding the right medication. That's the best way. That's easy. Fixing the causes, identifying the cause and find a solution to the problem. Sometimes this is hard when we're facing more complex medical conditions, which we cannot fix right away. Then we at least try to understand the problem, understand what's going on. Why am I facing this anxiety? Why am I facing this medical condition and not others? And how can I understand my condition? And if this is also not kind of working because it's maybe too complex to understand, I might seek at least emotional support, engage in emotional coping, and try to find, for example, social support, try to express myself and get positive feedback and so on. And that's all stuff we can do on social media, of course, but we are also facing some problems on social media. For example, humans tend not to trust the sources with the most expertise all the time, but sometimes we trust sources because maybe we identify with those sources. We feel that the source is a likable source. It's an authentic source, and so we put more value on authenticity, on likability than on expertise. And also, we're not selecting information based on the truth or the facts of that information, but mostly based on our judgment whether or not the information is supportive, whether it confirms our worldview, whether it is consistent with our worldview, and whether it helps us to cope with challenges we are facing. And third, this is a current editorial in the JAMA Pediatrics. When we're looking for information, we're of course also looking for information which we can understand, which is maybe formulated in plain language. Stephen has done a lot of great work on this topic. So it's important that people can understand the information, the medical information which they receive, that it's formulated in easy terms so that people can elaborate upon it, that they can process it and act upon it. And who is doing a really good job in all of these things? So being a very likable source, providing supportive content, using very simple language. It's the health influencers on social media, of course, and they are building a business model around that. So is that topic relevant at all? Who is following social media influencers? These are data from the United States, and we can see that over 70% of young adults are following social media influencers. We can infer that like younger people, like teenagers, have even higher rates here. And more than 40% report to have even purchased products based on the suggestions of social media influencers. So it's an important topic, but I want to focus on a specific breed of social media influencers now, on health influencers. So influencers which are have developed a reputation for posting content on health-related topics and have attracted a large followership, a large community of followers, which are paying close attention to their posts. Of course, we have some problems with those health influencers. First of them, some are lacking expertise. Of course, there are also doctors out there who are health influencers on social media. Any doctors out here who are influencers on social media? Maybe we have a few here, but some of those doctors also post on topics which they're not experts on. And of course, we have also people out there who lack the formal education and still post content on health-related topics. We have the problem of third-party influence, of course. So this has been come up like all the time in different presentations here, that the industry is sponsoring content on social media, sponsoring social media influencers, for example, through advertisements. And we have the problem that social media influencers also have vested interests themselves. They want to, gain attention. They want to have large audiences, increase the number of followers. And of course, sometimes they also want to sell their own products. So let's meet Domino Caddy. She's a German influencer, and she has more than 1 million influences in German-speaking countries, which is quite a lot because the German-speaking world is not that large, more than around 100 million people. And she's posting stuff about especially her medical condition, which is lipedema, which is a medical condition where there's like abnormal fat accumulation in the lower body parts. And she is, she's posting information on how she's handling that in her everyday life, and also the treatment process which she's going through, which also involves operations. So she did multiple operations, which is of course something which should come after lifestyle interventions. But so it can be helpful for people who have similar conditions, of course, to follow that content. The problem nowadays, of course, is that lipedema is sometimes confused with obesity, and we also know that we're facing increasing rates of obesity in high-income countries. But there's also another problem. Domino Caddy is sponsored by Starbucks, and she's also promoting frappuccinos and is unboxing chocolate cake on her account. Yeah, but actually, I wanted to focus more on mental health issues, because mental health topics are really big on social media. We just recently did a citizen science study with young people, where we ask school students, pupils, to collect data in their environment about social media influencer posts, and we collected together with the pupils 2,500 posts, around 2,500 posts. And most of the diseases the health influencers were talking about in these posts were related actually to mental health, so depression, anxiety, all those kind of problems. And this is not surprising, because we can see that there is an inflation of mental health problems being reported, self-reported, and also diagnosed. Recently, these are data from the US, from the Centers of Disease Prevention, and we can see there is quite an increase, especially in female students reporting increased feelings of sadness and hopeless. So there is an article, or there was an article coming out in the New Ideas in Psychology, introducing the prevalence inflation hypothesis. The prevalence inflation hypothesis is trying to explain why is there such an increase in the rates of mental health issues nowadays. And they come up with two explanations. So the first one is like a positive explanation. Maybe there is a reduction in stigma, which is positive, right? In our culture nowadays, people feel more confident to express and verbalize their mental health conditions. And maybe there's also an increase in mental health literacy. There's been a lot of mental health literacy campaigns in schools and in the media, which might have increased individuals' skills and capacity to identify mental health problems in themselves and report them accordingly. But the other interpretation is also that maybe all these awareness efforts and all the information out there on social media might lead to a situation where individuals might consider milder symptoms as mental health problems which need labeling, And even these milder symptoms are then reported as more serious diseases like depression or ADHD and so on. So there are a lot of people on social media, influencers on social media, talking about mental health problems. Vivian is one of them. She is also a German influencer, and she has a psychotherapeutic background. She has also a website, and in this specific video, she's talking about the 5 secret symptoms of depression. And not so secret actually, but of course secret is triggering some attention, I guess. Then she's also at the bottom in the caption here asking people to refrain from self-diagnosis, but if they feel the need to talk, they should go talk to someone. Turns out that on her website you can also book online sessions with her, and yeah, so that's might be a way to cope with depression. Dr. Julie is more direct here. She's directly speaking to her followers, so she wants to provide some information. How do you know if you have depression in under 1 minute? So she can gives you some information that you can self-diagnose yourself in under 1 minute. And she has around 5 million followers on Instagram here. TikTok, sorry. Similar video for burnout. So if you have a high need for junk food, if you're kind of bored with your job from time to time, and if you're distracted by your smartphone, you might have burnout. And of course, many people identify with those symptoms. One of them is fake. It's not mine. And of course, Farah and Emmy, they are also looking for solutions. So how can I get over it? How can I fix this? Well, you can buy her book, for example. And yeah, I think it's not a bad thing to promote books, right? Many of you promoting books also on this conference, which is a good thing. But it's of course another thing to really play with anxieties, play with hopes, and so on, which is a more severe case. Okay, but let's now talk about the case study Stephen presented at the beginning, the donanemab drug. And there is a lot of news coverage on this drug, and I tried to find some information also on social media, and I figured most of the information which is coming in on social media is actually coming from traditional media, from traditional media organizations, and the big picture is that the coverage is really positive. It is framed as a turning point and a revolution in how to treat Alzheimer, and it's not very critical. Well, at least one person is very happy about this coverage. It's this guy, David Ricks. He's the CEO of Lilly, and his stocks went up quite nicely here within 1 week. But also social media influencers were covering the topic. Some of them were covering it quite objectively, quite in a similar way as traditional media. But I think this is like maybe a bit more of a problematic case where you can see here that the information that the donanemab drug reduced or found to slow clinical progression in like 35%, and it goes along with a visual of a brain which indicates that there's some neurological improvements were going on, which I think is not that what the authors of the paper have actually measured. So this is obviously some misleading information, but correct me, Stephen, if it's if you have a different picture on this. But we also have to know that, of course, that information which comes in on social media is not like targeted at tabula rasa. People have prior information, and there's a lot of information on social media in general on Alzheimer's disease, which is mostly, of course, also coming in from the traditional media, in this case from the New York Post. There is obviously a teenager somewhere in China which was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. And of course, if you see that kind of messages and you're young and have similar maybe symptoms, which you can find, for example, here, then you might well, increase your anxiety and might try to find more information about this disease, and maybe in the end run into potential medications, which is not good for you. So in this video, Dr. Choe here explains early signs of Alzheimer's disease. And again, if you look at the comment section, you can see that many people, also young people, kind of identify with these symptoms, and yeah, maybe think that they might also have a similar problem here. So let me wrap it up. I think it's really important that that we reconsider how to do health communication in generally around these sensitive topics. And I think science communication and health communication in this case begins with journal articles. How do we write journal articles? How do we frame results? Sometimes we feel the pressure that we have to frame it in a way which is very convincing and which really points out the relevance of the topic as much as possible. And sometimes even researchers feel pressure to overstate what they've actually found. So I think we have to discuss this in the scientific community. How can we frame scientific studies results in a way which are actually also consistent with the actual impact of the findings? I think this is really important. Secondly, I think it's also really important to educate journalists, to provide educational material, to provide educational interventions to journalists. I think Brooke Nicol has done some work on this, and I think there are interventions out there which actually work and which some potential which we should leverage and support them in their reporting. Then, of course, I think it's important to provide and provide high quality information on social media on all of these topics. And I think public health agencies are really called into action here to really provide good quality, high quality information. Also for journalists and for everyone who's interested to share that information on social media, to provide counter narratives to misleading information on social media. And of course, we also have to work bottom up, enhance health literacy, media literacy, science literacy in young people in particular who are exposed to all that information on social media, and empower them from bottom up processes. And of course, it's important to involve politicians. I think regulating industry influence is really important. Regulate advertisement is really important, and also regulating harmful content. There's a whole discussion in Europe now, in particular, what is harmful content, what is too much regulation, what is too less regulation. And this is something we have also, I think, try to get involved with the expertise from our different fields, which we are representing here. And this is the way, hopefully, to create a more supportive information environment also on social media. And this is what we should be aiming for. Thank you very much for your attention.